Yo, yo, yo. Welcome to another episode of Philosopher's Stoned. So I had a new mic, but I couldn't figure out how to get it to fucking record out of mono. So I switched back to the old one with a new stand. Hopefully this shit's cool. So tonight we're getting into a tale of Atlantis, the lost water world or civilization from way back when, and we don't know what the fuck happened to it. We got some ideas, but we don't have a direct answer of where Atlantis went. Now, I could sit here and go through every single article I've found, every single book, which I did go through some very important books by authors I trust and follow. So the information here is widely available. I just figured I fucking love this idea and I wanted to cover it, and it kind of dips into some stuff that I'm about to cover in the very near future. Now, most of you have heard of Atlantis. I think it's part of that bullshit Aquaman movie that came out with the fucking Khal Drogo motherfucker. Fuck all that shit. You know what I'm saying? Fuck DC movies. They suck ass. So, I'm gonna jump right the fuck into it. Atlantis is said to exist around 3,000 years ago. We got our boy Plato, the ancient Greek Athenian philosopher, you know, the one taught by none other than Socrates himself. Plato was the first really to talk about Atlantis, and he did so in his two dialogues, Timaeus and Critias. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Like usual, I feel like I say that a lot. These stories could be based on real people from those times, or they could easily be allegorical. Just fictional stories meant to convey some kind of message, or strictly for entertainment, just fictional literature for the times. Plato allegedly got some of these tales of Atlantis from his great-grandfather or great uncle, or some shit like that, who got them from Solon, he received these truths of Atlantis from some Egyptian priest. It's very evident in all of these ancient stories that the ancient Egyptian priests were the rogue knowledge dealers back then. Solon passed Plato the story of Atlantis and how it was destroyed or lost 12,000 years ago. Roughly 12,000 years ago. Solon is an interesting guy. You should look him up if you feel like it. So briefly, I'll describe the Timaeus dialogue. It describes the nature of the physical world, purpose for the universe, all the properties of this universe, and the creation of the world soul. Also, this is where he appoints geometrical shapes for fire, air, water, and earth. Kind of the sacred geometry thing. I'm not going to dive into that too much, but the earth is represented by a cube, in his words. So maybe the earth ain't flat or round or even hollow, but we're in a fucking matrix box. And they've known this forever, which wouldn't surprise the fuck out of me one bit. So in Critias, which is told from the point of view of Critias, he recounts the story of the kingdom of Atlantis where they attempt to conquer Athens. To give a little more backstory, the earth was allotted to gods by region or country or civilization or city or whatever. The gods treated humans like precious cattle. So they took care of them, gave them food and shelter. It's said that Atlantis was allotted to Poseidon, whose name should ring a fucking bell if you ever went to school of any kind. He found himself a human wife named Cleito, and they produced a son named Atlas, who eventually took over Atlantis. This is very similar to early religious population reset myths. The Atlanteans started out noble and wholesome. They held no vices, so the Atlanteans 1.0 version was pure. They didn't drink, didn't indulge in greed, and other things deemed sinful, as if the DNA they inherited from the gods was still fresh in that bloodline of the era. But as time went on, so the Atlanteans 2.0, as I call them, that divine DNA started being tainted by the humans' natural reproduction. They started just reproducing, and eventually that God DNA diminished in time. So basically, they became corrupted. They lost the true vision of happiness and pretty much became huge pieces of shit. Zeus was then said to speak, but that's where Plato never finished this dialogue. So the last thing written for this particular dialogue is just not there. Either the Vatican has it in their little fucking weird library, or it's just lost in the dead mind of Plato. So I'm guessing, based on other reset myths, Zeus acted just like God when he hit the flood the earth button with Noah and the Nephilim. But we don't know because Plato didn't finish his fucking story. So thank you, Plato, for leaving it up to us to use our imaginations. For real, thank you. So let's quickly move on over with this shit to my motherfucking dog, Thoth, the Atlantean, master of mysteries, keeper of records, mighty king, magician, living from generation to generation, being about to pass into the halls of Amenti, set down for the guidance of those that are to come after these records of the mighty wisdom of great Atlantis. That is some poetic shit from Thoth. That's from the Emerald Tablets, first tablet to be exact. Kind of like the intro tablet. I'm about to do a whole series on Thoth / Hermes Trismegistus and the Emerald Tablets. That's going to be very, very lengthy, and it's going to include not my translation of the text, but my interpretation of the text. So I hope you give a shit about what I think, because that's what that basically is going to be, besides the factual information we have. I'm going to go ahead and recite another excerpt from the Emerald Tablets. Gradually, from the kingdoms of Atlantis passed waves of consciousness that had been one with me, only to be replaced by spawn of a lower star. I guess that insinuates Thoth was an Atlantean for real and survived whatever catastrophe that decimated the civilization. These texts from the Emerald Tablets kind of reinforces the whole Egyptians were keepers of the lost knowledge thing. Because even in the Emerald Tablets, he talks about how he passed knowledge to some Egyptian priest who scattered that shit among the world. But that is for that series, not this one. Thoth, I believe, was part of a council that were keepers of this information and would distribute it, just like the Egyptian Ennead Council of Nine. But that's literally another episode I'll get into soon. I know I say that a lot. I'm just kind of laying the groundwork for future episodes, because everything I talk about, there could be a part 2, part 3, part 4. Ooh, let's get into this guy, Edgar Cayce. A little bit of a mystic man from somewhat modern times. David Wilcox from Gaia claims to be the reincarnation of Edgar Cayce. So there's a cool fact that you shouldn't fucking believe because he's full of shit. So Edgar Cayce was a psychic medium who would go into self-induced trances, and he made a prophecy statement about the location of Atlantis, being located from the Gulf of Mexico to Gibraltar. And it was destroyed in a final event circa 10,000 BC. This is kind of backed up by Graham Hancock's Younger Dryas theory, an earlier glacial period, if I'm correct, that should have done some detrimental damage to civilizations on Earth. I mean, that shit could have fucked with the whole Earth and sank Atlantis and maybe other civilizations that we have never found and will never have any idea about. Shout out to Graham Hancock. Read his books if you haven't already. Moving on to Francis Bacon. I've done some research on this dude. I probably will do an episode on him just by himself because he produced a lot of cool material. Very interesting guy. He wrote a book called New Atlantis in 1627, and this stated that the true location of Atlantis is somewhere off the western coast of good old America. He described Atlantis as a very utopian society, which is what we've heard about plenty of other ancient societies that we won't know about, is that it was very perfect, and then all of a sudden it got wiped out. So it's nice to mention Helena Blavatsky also prophesied about Atlantis and described the folks of this water world were giant in form, possibly the relatives of the Nephilim. And I'm sure if I dug deeper into that, I could find a Nazi occult connection to Atlantis, which I'm pretty sure I saw a link to. So here we get to the surviving Atlanteans, or Atlans, according to Alex Collier, the guy I get the alien species information from. He is a great researcher, a good author. I fuck with a lot of his stuff. Definitely a dude worth looking into catalog wise. So this is what he said about the surviving Atlanteans. These are humans, usually described as being benevolent by comparison to other groups who are said to inhabit vast, complex cavern cities beneath southern Brazil and surrounding regions. The term Atlantean or Atlan is referring to these races. They have been placed upon them because of the fact that these cavern networks along the east coast of Brazil were reportedly once a part of the antediluvian Atlantean Empire. The present inhabitants have no direct genetic relation to the ancient Atlantean society, which is said to have controlled these cavern systems several millennia ago, but are referred to as Atlanteans simply because they are descendants of those who rediscovered and inhabited the ancient Atlan installations. As in North America and other continents, both common and gnome-like humans have been encountered here, some of which possessed advanced aerial or disc technology. So is he saying a bunch of midgets could be Atlanteans as well? So we got giant Atlanteans and midget Atlanteans. I love midgets. I love giants. So I would like to meet both of these folks. Now here we'll step into the world of David Hatcher Childress, another researcher and author who I do pay attention to his work. I like to read it. You should too if you find any of this interesting. His location theory on Atlantis is in Thera and Crate. That's spelled Crete. According to the tourist literature in Greece, the explosion of the Aegean island of Thera destroyed Crete, and at the same time, it destroyed Atlantis. While Plato is quite explicit in his time frame and location for Atlantis, 9400 BC and in the Atlantic, Greek archaeologists seem certain that Atlantis can be found only a few hundred miles from Athens. So it's right around the corner from where Plato was doing all his work. Thousands of tourists come to Thera every year and drink the local Atlantis wine while they discuss Atlantis. For them, Atlantis will never be found anywhere else. Sounds like a fun vacation for me, just going and talking to a bunch of tourists about Atlantis and where it could be. So I rarely do this, and I'm about to just rant about what I think about Atlantis. I believe Thoth knew exactly where Atlantis was buried or lost, and if once we get into the Thoth Hermes thing, he's a thrice born being reincarnated 3 times. That's a simple way to put it. And it's said that one day Thoth will return to grab his spaceship that he stashed under one of the paws of the Sphinx pyramid temple thing. So, shout out to Thoth. I really, really can't wait to get into the Emerald Tablet stuff because that's something I've read the Emerald Tablets over and over and over again. It really resonates with me. It's kind of like a spiritual guideline, Bible-ish thing. You really have to read it for yourself. If you're a fan of my channel or any of this old civilization shit, any Anunnaki shit even, Hermetics, anything like that, I would suggest reading the Emerald Tablets. So I think if Thoth is waiting to reappear, he's chilling in Atlantis with a bunch of mermaids massaging his toe muscles while he sits there and counts the days till he returns to grab his spaceship. So yeah, Atlantis could be the inspiration for the great film Waterworld with Kevin Costner. You know what I'm saying? That could be the real story of Atlantis. Dennis Hopper is a bad guy, and Kevin Costner is a good guy. So, like I think I said, there's a lot of conflicting stories of Atlantis. Where exactly it was, where exactly it went after it disappeared, if it was completely demolished. I really like the Bimini Road stuff. It is a underwater road to Atlantis, supposedly. And there's concentric circles found through radiocarbon dating and whatnot. And that was described by Plato, I do believe. If I'm wrong, I'm fucking wrong. Correct me. I don't give a fuck. Go ahead, do what you do. That's what we're here for. We're here to discuss this shit and figure out the truth as much as we can. Thank you for watching Philosopher's Stoned. Like I said, I have the Emerald Tablets of Thoth coming up. That's going to be a whole series on those specifically, and even an episode where I just describe who Thoth was in the Egyptian mythos. And after that, I'm going to cover Hermes. So, who fucking knows? I could be the third reincarnation of motherfucking Thoth, which would be super tight. But it's probably not. I'm probably the reincarnation of Conway Twitty or some shit like that, which I wouldn't be mad at either. You know what I'm saying? Hello, fucking darling. Like I said, thank you for watching Philosopher's Stone. Yeah. I got a lot of good shit coming out. If you know who John D is, I'm doing an extensive little series on John D. It might not be as extensive as I just explained, but I really want to understand Enochian magic and his whole deal because he had a lot to do with the Philosopher's Stone. And relating to the name of the channel, I'd be an idiot to skim over that shit. Thank you for watching Philosopher's Stone. I think I finally hit 200 subscribers, which is fucking great. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for the comments. I've had some people hit me up and want to talk about certain things. So, you know what I'm saying? I'm always down to collab too. So just hit me. We can talk. We can chop it up and we can do some shit. I have an episode coming out soon with my wife, my beautiful wife, who grew up in the Mormon church community, but she has left, and that is a whole. I feel like that's under the cult stuff because that religion is fucking weird and crazy with the temple and all that shit. Got that coming up, and I'm gonna have another guest on pretty soon. Secret guest. It's gonna be a funny episode. So stay tuned. Keep watching the channel. I really appreciate all the love and the comments back and just all the feedback, guys. It makes me feel warm in my heart. So have a nice rest of your quarantine. I know people are like, fuck opening Texas back up, fuck opening the country back up. It doesn't really matter because they're gonna try to kill us all anyway with the chemtrails and all that shit. And don't believe that Pentagon shit they just released. That footage is very old, and US, Russia, and China have been testing sonically charged weapons, so be wary of anything that comes out of a government institution like the Pentagon. So that's all I gotta say about that. I hope you guys have a nice night. I rambled a little bit tonight because I felt like fucking talking and being social. God damn it. Hey, I love you guys. Philosopher's Stoned. Stay tuned. You know what it is. Nothing snooty, baby.